they are not accepting it as a sexual violence. Cruelty is a very broad term. आपको उसको explain करना है. You have to explain it that this is a sexual violence. Marital rape is a sexual violence. The moment they recognize marital rape as a sexual violence, things will settle down, will be sorted out. रेप के लिए प्रोविजन पहले भी नहीं था, अभी जो नया बीएनएस आया है उसमें भी नहीं है, एक्सेप्शन उसमें भी दिया गया है, एक्सेप्शन पहले भी दिया गया था आईपीसी के अंदर.
The center has clarified its stance on the marital rape exception for the first time, and this is how it reads. It is essential to understand that a husband does not possess a fundamental right to violate his wife's consent. However, labeling such violations as rape is excessively harsh and therefore disproportionate. The petitioners argued that while there are social aspects to marriage, the core issue remains the autonomy and consent of both partners. Remember, in 2022, before the Delhi High Court, the union government stated that the matter requires broader consultation. So at that time, a review of the existing criminal laws was pending. Now, in a 49-page affidavit filed by the Ministry of Home Affairs, the government acknowledged marital rape, but reframed the prescription for the crime, suggesting that the consequences differ from those of outside violations, meaning that the consequences for rape of a husband cannot be the same as consequences for rape outside marriage. So why should consent be presumed simply because a couple is married? That is the primary question here. The government's position is that a woman's consent is not nullified by marriage. The legal framework already provides remedies, including sections of IPC that protect against domestic violence and other forms of abuse. So this form of abuse will also come under the purview of those sections of IPC. It cannot be brought under the regular rape law. Yet in reality, the issue is that these laws fail to address the specific issue of marital rape. The existing laws do not address it. There is a strong view that the cultural implications of retaining the exception can have serious consequences for women's rights and dignity. So let me welcome Shaheen Khan Naqshbandi, advocate of the Bombay High Court, joining me here today on the program to discuss this issue. Hello and welcome, Shaheen ji. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
I want to begin then by asking you that here is a case of the center arguing that sure, there can be a case made that a husband can rape his wife, but he will not be liable to the same punishment as anyone else. What justifies a position like this?
The problem is our patriarchal society assumes that the consent in marriage is perpetual, is a continuous, and does not recognize that marital rape is a sexual violence. The moment they recognize marital rape as a sexual violence, things will settle down, will be sorted out. Now, even in this judgment, if they are accepting it is a marital rape, it cannot be nullified. But is it a ground for divorce? Is it a ground for some kind of punishment? Is it a ground for some kind of deterrence? No. Nothing has been addressed so far.
Already there are provisions for cruelty that a woman can take recourse to. There are enough provisions for domestic violence, for abuse. So, वो sections में आप file कर सकते हैं. Rape के लिए कोई provision नहीं है marriage के अंदर. That's basically what the center has said.
रेप के लिए प्रोविजन पहले भी नहीं था, अभी जो नया बीएनएस आया है उसमें भी नहीं है, एक्सेप्शन उसमें भी दिया गया है, एक्सेप्शन पहले भी दिया गया था आईपीसी के अंदर. There is no exception to it. The point what I'm trying to make is they are not accepting it as a sexual violence. Cruelty is a very broad term. आपको उसको explain करना है. You have to explain it that this is a sexual violence. You understand the difference between all kinds of violence. Every violence, it definitely deserves to be addressed. It's a grievance and it has to be addressed in a proper redressal forum. But the point here is whether the government is ready to accept marital rape as a sexual violence. No, they are not. They want to cover it under the wraps of a broad cruelty. It doesn't work that way. And does domestic violence?
Yeah. Right. Because फिर क्या होता है basically then in my understanding what happens then is that it tantamounts to saying that मैरिज के अंदर कोई सेक्सुअल वायलेंस नहीं हो सकता है. देयर इज नो सच थिंग एज सेक्सुअल वायलेंस इन मैरिज. देयर इज नो सच थिंग एज रेप इन मैरिज. सो द सेंटर इज ऑल्सो कॉन्ट्रोडिक्टिंग इटसेल्फ. ऑन वन हैंड इट्स सेइंग यस maybe there can be a case made for marital rape, but उनको हम वैसे नहीं पनिश कर सकते. Why are the husbands exempt? Why this privilege extended to the men that they can get away? Because after all, he's your husband. That is the message, right?
The reason is the patriarchal society. If you, despite all the advancements that we have, despite all the feminist movements we have, the society continues to remain a patriarchal society, and the patriarchal society will definitely defend its privilege to rape a wife.
Yes, but the center's argument is that if you recognize marital rape as a crime, that will disrupt the institution of marriage. The balance of societal interest has to be maintained, and that is where the center feels that it has to keep the overall interest in mind, the greater common good in mind. And protecting the interest of women is only one part of it. Unko pura dekhna hai, pure samaj ka. So which is why the government is saying this will disturb the institution of marriage, destabilize marriage, and create certain disbalances in society. And therefore, it does not want to go to the extent of criminalizing rape.
This is a very feeble argument to support their privilege. The fact is, any kind of violence. Now, if you see other kinds of sexual violence, like a violence against a daughter, a sister-in-law, are they not addressed? Are they not punished? Do they not have a proper place where these matters or these violences are taken as sexual violence? So why, if suppose they're assuming if there's a rape of a daughter by a father, it's again a society. Does the society, does the government not recognize these as rapes? They do. Does it not affect a family system? It does. Why should only a wife be deprived of this right?
Very important point. That's a very, very interesting argument that you're making, that by that logic, even a father cannot rape a daughter. It will disturb the relations of a father-daughter. It will shake up the society and those relations. So while you are trying to protect and preserve something, you are ignoring the inherent problems and trying to turn a blind eye, trying to look the other way. And that is not in the interest of women. The other argument, Shaheen, that the government is making is that these are matters that are to be handled by the legislature. So what it says is 2013 ko ye deliberation ho chuka hai. In its wisdom, the parliament decided to retain the exception, and parliament consists of elected representatives. So in a way, it represents the people's mandate, and societal matters must be therefore left to the parliament, to the legislature. The court should not come in and strike down this exception. So how do you respond to that? That let the parliament decide, let the legislature be supreme in this. After all, they are the representatives of the people and the people's mindsets.
See, if you see the triple talaq case, much before the legislation was passed, Supreme Court has struck down, has said that triple talaq will not be acceptable. It is later that the legislature was formulated. So why Supreme Court is our custodian? Instead of waiting for the legislature to come up, show them a way, give directions that these kind of matters will be dealt, and they are punishable offenses. Let the Supreme Court start the beginning. Legislature will be formulated over the time. And how many female members are there in a legislature? What is those who are elected from the parliament? They are from the public. I told you the society is patriarchal. How will you reform the society? Unless some society, some body takes up, some authority, some body takes up on its own to reform, there can be no reform from the public itself. You're not expecting. You're expecting,
isn't it? Because ek to women's representation bill bhi pass nahi hua hai. As it is, we have a very abysmally poor representation of women. Largely, it will be the male point of view. Even if it goes to the legislature, And then because politicians are politicians, there will be vote bank issues. There are number of other considerations that members of parliament go with. So you are saying that that is not the right way to look at it. I also want to bring another example. You brought in the example of a father daughter case, but there is another
Yeah.
contradiction here. Like, for example, adultery is criminalized. Adultery will not destabilize a marriage, criminalizing rape will. So, do you see
Yes.
the sort of dichotomy, the sort of duplicity in that?
See, at the core is they do not want to bring equality in genders. They do not want a woman to be an equal who can stand up and say, yes, this is a violence against me. Whereas a man, that will bring up, actually, if they bring this law, this itself will equalify the genders in marriage, in a relationship. They do not want a woman to be an equal partner in marriage in any case.
Which is unfortunate. But then again, to that again, the government argues that we want to empower women, but why do you need a legal empowerment? Why do you want to drag the husband to the police? Why don't you resolve it within or take recourse to the other provisions? What is the need for a legal empowerment for by married women for protection against rape?
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. They do not want to give women that equality that she can go and claim her right. She she can go to the police station, file a complaint against the husband, and a regular rape, the way a regular rape case is treated, a marital rape case should be treated equally.
तो वही तो कह रहे हैं, अगर वो हमने अलाउ कर दिया तो women will start going to the police station against their husbands. That will disturb society. तो that is the
देखिए
problem. Legal empowerment
ये
देने में problem है.
exactly. The problem is empowering women. They do not want them to be empowered. Forget about empowerment. They don't even want them to be equal. They do not want them to have an equal right in marriage. Marriage, they want the husband to keep an upper hand. The very basic, very basal ideas that man is a provider, man is the master of the house, that is internalized even by the people sitting in authority.
Right. And that is what you are saying is evident in this, trying to retain the exception, because as we evolve, I mean, there was a time when even Domestic Violence Act did not exist. There had to be a fight. Women had to fight for these things. So today you have a Domestic Violence Act. Similarly, do you see somewhere down the line, society progressing to accept this and make it a law? Or are we going to be stuck in this because it has taken us years and we are back to square one?
No. Eventually, we are all evolving. Things are not same as they were a decade back. Eventually, definitely a reform will take place. It just takes some very strong-headed, strong-willed people in authority to make a decision.
Homosexuality is also legalized. I mean, in terms of course,
Yes.
marriage is not legalized, but homosexual act has also been legalized. Utna progress
Yes.
hum kar chuke hain. Just the wives, just a married woman will not have the right to say no. If she is raped, her husband will not be liable to the same punishment as any other rapist. So that sort of injustice, I would say, to women is very, very clear. But in conclusion, what would you say to this process that this case is going through? Now the center has filed this affidavit. What happens next? Is there any hope that there can be a position taken by the Supreme Court which will contest this position that the center has taken?
See, it is just a repetition. Whatever the affidavit government has filed, this has been the procedure even earlier. Every time this issue comes up, this is the same old argument of the government. So I don't think. I really wish Supreme Court takes a very strong decision on it, and for once and all, at least acknowledges it as a ground for divorce. Start with that. If you do not want to criminalize it, in the instant go, at least acknowledge it that it is a marital rape. Accept it as a rape. And rape is a violence. Accept it as a violence. So it will become a ground for divorce. To start with, and then hopefully things will improve.
Right. And on the
How
point of
can you?
misuse, is there anything you want to say that, there's the point of misuse has also been quoted, that this can be widely misused by women. And that's the real fear. Therefore, the government says that, we can actually, if we allow this, it will open a Pandora's box. We will be biting more than what we chew, in the sense that there will be new challenges coming up, which we cannot handle.
You cannot stop reforming laws for the fear of few who will misuse it. This has been the argument, whether it's rape cases, whether it is domestic violence cases. This has been their argument. But what we have seen is it has brought reforms. It has definitely empowered women. So, assuming that a section, there will always be a section of people, men or women, either of it, who will use or who will misuse the law. But that does not mean that you're going to stop the reformation of a society at large.
Right. In fact, you would be aware, and I am going to read out a bit from the affidavit what it says about the misuse part, that the need for societal and legal evolution is clear, but so is the concern for potential misuse of laws. The center maintains that legal frameworks are in place to address these issues without criminalizing marital relationships. So, the question in conclusion that I want to ask you, Shaheen ji, is, should the law evolve to protect every individual's rights, irrespective of marital status? Law should evolve. Is that something that we need to rise up to wake up to?
Yes, anything that can bring equality in society definitely should evolve. The intention or aim of any law is to give justice. How can justice come without equality, without fairness?
Right. Thank you so much, Advocate Shaheen Khan, for joining us today, for sharing your views with us here on Free Question.
Thank you for bringing.